What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. The new Zeke's update is going to hit the live servers in the next patch, which should be coming out the day after I release this video. And after playing around with it on the PBE, I think that the item is actually insanely powerful and is likely going to impact the meta quite heavily. Let's get started. So for those who don't know, Zeke's Herald is getting a pretty big rework and now costs 2300 gold to build, building out of 2 amplifying tomes and a glacial shroud, and gives 250 mana, 35 armor, 50 ability power, and 10% cooldown reduction, so it's all fairly decent stats that your average support champion could make use of. The AP isn't great, but it certainly isn't terrible, and having CDR, mana, and armor on an item is really good for a support. And the build path is pretty nice too, in that it has a lot of really cheap parts that you can build up to. Note that the item's stats are worth about 2605 gold, which at the cost of 2300 gold is quite gold efficient, which is really powerful when we take a look at its new passive. You bind it to an ally, and you can rebind it to a different ally on a cooldown of 60 seconds, and when you are within 1000 units of each other, you generate charges passively, as well as by attacking and casting abilities, and when you reach 100 charges, you and the ally you have it bound to gain 50% critical chance and gain 20% increased ability power as well, for 6 seconds, and the item charges quite fast, about 5 charges per auto attack and ability by the person you bound it to, and 5 charges each time you auto attack, and then about 10 charges each time you as the person with the item uses an ability. So any utility support where you can kind of just throw out your kit and use all of your abilities, it's super easy and quite fast to proc on, since you can usually generate up to 40, even 50 stacks quite quickly. In addition, you can rebind it every 60 seconds to any player on your team, so it's decent for roams and jungle invades, and can pull out some crazy power that your opponents might not expect a lot of the time. And honestly, I think this item is going to be crazy strong on any utility supports who can make use of the ability power effectively. So essentially pretty much every support in the game that is ranged, as well as maybe Blitzcrank, Taric, maybe Nautilus are going to be amazing with this item, since the stats are solid, as is the gold efficiency, and the proc of giving your AD carry 50% crit chance for 6 seconds is totally insane, since the synergy it creates with Infinity Edge is ridiculous, and with an attack speed item, you will usually get your AD carry to 100% crit chance, while the crits are dealing the 250% bonus damage due to the Infinity Edge, which gives them an absolutely bonkers amount of DPS for those 6 seconds. You can melt Dragon and Baron and completely destroy tanks, even if you aren't that far ahead, since it gives such an insane amount of raw damage, and you can usually get 4 to 6, sometimes even 7 auto attacks during the proc if you have good positioning. I honestly think this item might lead to an AD carry meta for a while until it gets nerfed, because when you pull off the proc at the right time, you kind of just go off. It's just way too strong to pass up having on a team. However, proccing at the right time can be a little bit difficult though, and as a player who has poor mechanical skills myself, microing the stacks was a little bit hard to keep track of amongst everything else going on, so it is true that it can be hard to use. It's quite similar to a Nar's ultimate actually, in that you don't really decide when to proc it on, but you can influence it quite heavily. But on quite a few champions, it's not that difficult at all, especially when you consider the kits of a champion like Sona, maybe Janna, and other utility supports who usually you can just use all of your abilities and get 40 stacks pretty much instantly, and so it's not actually that hard to proc it on time. You just have to make sure that you aren't procking it too early, which is something that I found happened quite a bit, and is certainly something that your team will probably not have a problem playing around actually if you have proper communication. So I would definitely expect this item to stomp in competitive play, and potentially create the first meta since Season 2 where AD carries are a really big powerhouse. So who knows, I'm really excited to see this new item come to fruition. I'm also interested to see if some top laners might potentially pick up this item for the team fighting power too, and you might end up having 2 Zeke's Heralds on your team, as it's definitely a strong enough item for teams to make use of in that way, and in a meta with assassins that have been nerfed to the ground and tanks somewhat dying off, I think we are poised to see some strong AD carries and bruisers make use of this item to really dominate the meta. So what do you think? Is the item overpowered? It probably isn't for solo queue actually, since it does require a solid amount of coordination and skill and timing to make use of, but in duo queue and coordinated play with some decent microing of the stacks, I think this item is quite insane, but we'll have to wait and see what happens in the next patch. And that just about wraps it up. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button to help support me, as well as you could subscribe for some more awesome content in the future. Definitely check out some of my other videos on the screen too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.